Africa first. It's our mantra here at News Central, and today we're celebrating with a pearl of Africa. Uganda marks 59th independence celebration. This is our live studio to celebrate and look at the country, its economy, governance, and the future. You're welcome. My name is Felicity Ezewuike, and I have my colleague with me.
And I'm Gbenga, Aborowa. It's nice to celebrate the Pearl of Africa, as was christened by Winston Churchill so many years ago. And it's such a beautiful country. And I'm sure over 45 million Ugandans are celebrating today, but a bit muted because we're in the middle of a coronavirus pandemic.
But that's never stopped the celebration. So we will be celebrating, and, you know, 59 years of independence is something to be celebrated in all ramification, and hopefully we'll look at after the celebration, what next? What is the future looking like for this East African country?
Yes, and we're not doing this alone. We have a team of expert resource people in Uganda. They'll be joining us in our live broadcast studio today. We have Hakim Nkalubo, who's a media and communications researcher. We also have Sulaiman Kakaire, who's a lawyer and political journalist. We have so much in store for our viewers everywhere in the world.
Yes, indeed. And to kick off the conversation, we know that there is live celebrations across Uganda as we speak. But before we go and join that, hopefully we will be looking at the country since independence. How have they fared? Are they enjoying the freedom that independence brings? Are the benefits of rights also enjoyed by the people? 59
years, the hope of a nation, just like the great crowned crane in the center of the Ugandan flag. It has its leg raised forward. So on the 8th of, on the night of October 1962, they did signal that, look, the journey to nationhood began, and Uganda, like most countries, have had its ups and downs, and we'll be looking at that journey.
But the beautiful thing about this East African country, like most African nations, is that they are made up of different ethnicity. But when it comes to a celebration of this oneness, you see those diversity melts away, and we're able to focus on one thing: our celebration of independence and freedom, so to speak. See if we can have a bit of a conversation and continue to, you know, go down memory lane, rather. We have joining us one of our guests, Hakim Nkalubo. He is a media and communications expert as well as a researcher. It's a pleasure to have you join us on this very beautiful day for the people of Uganda. Happy independence, first off.
Thank you very much, and for the wishes, and also for hosting me. Once again, it's always a pleasure being with you at News Central.
Thank you, Hakim. Now, it's 59 years since independence. What's the mood like in Kampala, in Entebbe, in Jinja, in different parts of Uganda as we speak?
Thank you very much. I must say, the mood is normal. The mood is normal. People are going on with their own businesses. I think the only people who can actually get, especially people doing their own their businesses, those who are not working in government, most of them are doing their business. Those in the transport sector, the buses and taxis are working. People in their businesses in Kampala, in the arcades, they are all working. I think it's only those who work with government institutions and some private corporations that are large corporations are actually understanding that today is independence. And the fact that it's a Saturday where most people don't usually go to work, business is as usually is normal, except those who will actually go to Kololo. And because of COVID, you realize that the numbers are still very small.
What is responsible for this? We know that COVID-19 is impacting how people are celebrating, but a country that has existed independently in spite of all the challenges for 59 years, why is it that, you know, what you're describing is like I really
Everyone
don't
is just
care
going about
kind
their
of
business, yeah.
Yes. Why? What is responsible for it?
I think the spirit of nationalism and the spirit of belonging to Uganda is slowly depreciating. People feel like they really don't have that attachment to the state or even to the country and what is going on. Most people are trying to look for their daily bread, and so you realize that that kind of love for the country is depreciating. And when it comes to, let me bring in the political aspect, that people from the opposition have a feeling that this is a celebration for the ruling national resistance movement. That's the NRM party members. Because even at the celebrations when they start and everything, who was hosted, who is going to speak, it's going to be for those in the ruling regime, in the ruling government. So this would have been a good day to unite all the people, because, okay, we have the English, the British when they left, so it's us now in control. But it seems like now power is within the hands of the few, and others feel like they are not really part of Uganda. Seems like now Uganda belongs to a certain class of people, a certain group of people who are actually not so many. And I think partly, according to me, I think that contributes to that kind of, I don't care, I don't mind what is going on.
Okay, Hakim, the theme of this year's Independence Day celebration is securing our future through a national mindset change. If you look at the history of Uganda since 1962, since you got your independence, it's been quite protracted until the NRM came into power in 1986 when the current president, Yoweri Kaguta Museveni, came in through a coup. But before Museveni years, you had late President Idi Amin, you had Obote, the economy was decimated. So if you look back and you look at what's happening in the East Africa region as we speak today, Uganda seems to have enjoyed a lasting peace since 1986. Is that not what's celebrated? If you look at what's happening in South Sudan, DRC, for example, and countries around you?
Thank you very much. I hope I really got you very well, and I'm sure I did. When you talk about lasting peace in Uganda, it actually depends on who, and also maybe if you ask someone who actually is living in the country. I think for the first years before Museveni came in, that's up to 1986, Uganda was actually having a lot of coups and then takeovers, military coups, yes, and the likes. So since when Museveni came in, I think when you talk about lasting peace, I really don't think so. Even stability, when we talk about that, stability is not, because different regions at different times since 1986 have been experiencing political instabilities. For instance, the past 20 years, the northern region, where we had the LRA, it has not been at peace. You remember the Kasese attacks, when the Renzolulu Kingdom in Mountain Renzoli, when they were attacked, it involved even the government. Right now, as we are speaking, we've been having killings in one of the central regions called Greater Massacre region, where many people have actually been dying. So I cannot call that political stability or even any kind of relative peace, because in the southern region, when there is peace, in the north, there is no peace. In the east, when it is the situation is calm, you'll find that in the western region of Kasese, people are actually dying. And in certain instances, it's even in mysterious ways. You really don't even know who is actually killing the people.
But what you're saying sort of describes most parts of Africa, really, because in every country there will always be issues that you have to contend with. But let's look at the celebrations today still. I want to go back to what my colleague Gbenga mentioned earlier. He talked about the theme for this year, securing the future through a mindset change. I'm trying to paraphrase now. And then I want to ask you, there should be a speech by the president. Do you see that speech in any way trying to, address the issue of mindset change towards embracing a nationalist consciousness again?
Thank you very much. I think when you talk about securing the future through mindset change, I really don't know the kind of approach that is going to be used, because the Museveni I've actually gotten to know since I grew up, and from what I've heard about him and a few things that he has done at a time when I can understand, is that mindset change goes into some bit of sensitizations, empowerment, and then also skilling people with the best ideologies, which I really don't think. And in his speech, I expect less of that. I think when I predict, I expect the president to talk about safeguarding the government, crushing all those that are actually trying to threaten government programs and peace and security. That's what he usually does. That's what he usually talks about, crushing people, his tactics, because he knows that that's what most Ugandans are scared of. So mindset change and securing the future, I highly doubt.
Okay, Hakim, you said you've only known one president since you were born. That's the current president, Yoweri Museveni, if I got you right earlier. Now, away from politics, today is a day of celebration. Beyond the NRM, the National Resistance Movement, the current ruling party, and the opposition NUP, National Unity Platform of Bobby Wine, Uganda belongs to Ugandans. I mean, regardless of political parties, when Ugandans are abroad, no one, and when you win gold medals at the Olympics, they don't ask what political party you support or what is your political affiliation. So away from politics, just looking at being a proud Ugandan today, what are those positives you see in the country? What are those things that make you proud as a young Ugandan today, as you celebrate your 59th independence anniversary?
Thank you very much. Of course, as a Ugandan and everyone, anyone who belongs to a certain country or region, there's always something good about your country. We understand the country has a culture of a good welcoming hospitality. It's a good hospitable country. When you see us hosting a number of refugees, even when we have scarce resources, Uganda is a country that will actually welcome anyone who comes to eat or who comes to Uganda, whether you are actually well off or whether you're not well off. It's a welcoming country. It's a very hospitable country. Our country is actually endowed with a lot of good resources, natural resources, I can say, only that most of these are actually being mismanaged. So everyone, and including me, I'm a proud Ugandan, and I would really want to be part of those who are celebrating the 59 years of independence. Unfortunately, the things we hear most of our forefathers fought against, it's what we are experiencing. So I would really want a better Uganda where everyone is free to say whatever they want, where everyone is free to go to whichever place they want to. And then if we can actually hold our leaders accountable, which is not possible, sometimes even our freedoms are not entirely, we are not free to enjoy most of our freedoms, like freedom of expression and speech. But honestly, to tell you, I'm among the most proud Ugandans that I wouldn't even wish to leave the country, even if it's coming to work in Nigeria or anywhere else. I would just want to come and be a visitor because I believe we are the pearl indeed.
I agree with you that it's always good to build from the inside. I mean, there is nothing wrong with going to look for greener pastures and bringing it back home. We still have you, Hakim. We'll be right back with you. But for now, let's take a look at what the live events are at the Kololo Independence Ground. Let's see what's going on there.
To be fulfilled without failing for 22 years, and today we are here for the 23rd national prayers. Ebenezer, thus far the Lord has brought us in peace, unity, and prosperity. Thank you, Lord, for all the people that have raised the flag of Uganda, beginning with the Professor Patrick Ogwang, the sportsmen, Joshua and Perus, and many others that we have not mentioned here. But Lord, we thank you. And may you continue to bless them as you bless our nation. Lord, my Father, you are a gracious God. We honor and thank you for the beautiful nation, Uganda, the power of Africa, a nation that is gifted.
So we're leaving live feeds from the Kololo Independence Grounds in Kampala there as part of, we can see the national prayers going on as part of celebrations for Uganda's 59th independence anniversary. We'll get back to the live feeds from Kololo Independence Grounds when the president gives a speech. But right now we still have Hakim Nkalubo, media and communications researcher in the studio with us. I remember before we went on, before we joined Kololo, we were talking about how proud he is as a Ugandan and how hospitable they are, some of the positive qualities they have. And if you look at the world, Uganda actually has one of the biggest population of refugees. And you know, in Africa, we always say, be your brother's keepers. So that's a big positive there. And I've actually visited the country before. It's really a pearl.
We do have colleagues that that come from Uganda and live there. They still go back there from time to time, you know, to, live with the people generally. Let's go back to Hakim for a bit, because I have a very important question to ask you. You're talking about, being a bit dissatisfied with the way things are. As a young, progressive Ugandan, what do you think the youths are doing or not doing right in order to, sort of whip their leaders into shape to listen to what the people need?
Thank you very much. What the youth are not doing right, or what they're actually trying to do, I think I can, it's a two-way here. Because in life is like a race, whereby you run and then your next, your other colleague is actually going to hand you over something to work. All is like when you actually join to do in a certain profession, when you are new in the profession, you need to be mentored. You need to be trained by those who have been in the regime. But even when we would want to actually do the right, it's not the kind of system or the nurturing we are having. We are seeing a protective government. We are seeing protective leaders trying to hold on. They don't want to actually even mentor those who are actually coming in. When I was growing up, for instance, we used to have like a political party like Democratic Party. It used to have, let's say, the UID, Uganda Young Democrats, that could actually mentor the people who are actually going to replace. When you look at the current regime of most of the people who are actually in politics, in government, and also those in opposition, these were people who are mentored by those they found in. For instance, people like Semogerere, they were mentoring people like the Elias Lukwago, who are in the Uganda Young Democrats. So UID, that is Uganda Young Democrats. So but now it's not existing. The people who are actually in any political office are not living to give space to the others.
And I mean, sometimes, I know this might sound a bit of a cliche, but then you are saying that mentorship is no longer available. If you know, as the young people of a country, that, I mean, these people are not going to give us what we need to help us get into that position, what other strategies do you think that the young people can begin to explore to make a shift for themselves in governance?
I think now, when you look at, I will attribute this politically to what is actually happening in the country, you realize that before the coming into political space, I mean, before Bobi Wine joined the political phase, or Kyagulanyi Ssentamu joined politics, most of the youths were trying to support Besigye, others were trying to support a few other political parties, but Besigye, he was a very influential political figure in the opposition, but when someone who is within the youth bracket, who is not in the other class of the elderly, joined politics, you realize that whether Bobi Wine has the right message or not, they are saying we should actually join this. So they are trying to form a political formation. They are coming up with a political formation of the youth to fight for their future. They are saying, you guys fought for your future, so we should actually fight for our future. So I think they are trying to come up with that, although the state is also wise that they are actually not giving that space to them. One, they are not giving them political space, playing space, except on the internet where it's possible. And also the government is also trying to retaliate on the internet. They're intercepting most of the people actually trying to mobilize using the internet. And then that's how you see policies like, I mean, articles and policies like the Computer Misuse Act coming in. So all that is actually coming in to intercept that. But the youths are actually trying to come up with their own political formation strategies and ways to see how they can actually grab this kind of power and ownership of the country. So that they believe that, yes?
Yeah, Hakim, I'm happy you mentioned the last elections. You also talked about how opposition politics used to be in Uganda. Dr. Kizza Besigye was almost a permanent fixture in contesting against his former friend, who was personal physician to the current president, Museveni, until we saw a renaissance and the vibrancy that Robert Kyagulanyi brought, Bobi Wine, last year. But current President Museveni has just won another 5-year term. So what do young Ugandans do? Because they make up a large percent of the population of Uganda, and it's their future we're talking about here. So the fact is that President Museveni is president, but are there youths occupying other elective positions? And what can they do for the next 5 years? Because they're not just going to sit back and wait till President Museveni finishes his term in office. What can they do right now to build for the future?
Sorry, I think I had a network problem. I'm just going to request you to repeat for me once again. Sorry?
Okay, I said Bobi Wine was a new face in opposition politics last year when he contested against President Museveni. And unlike Dr. Kizza Besigye, who belongs to an older generation. So he managed to galvanize a lot of young people, but he didn't win the elections. So what can young people in Uganda do for the next 5 years when President Museveni is still president to secure their future and to be part of national development in Uganda? Because it's their future we're talking about here.
Thank you very much. It's a tricky one, especially for the young or the youth who would actually want to join the national bread and then maybe drive issues in the way they really want and best for them as the youth. Because one, I think the current political opposition, especially led by Robert Kyagulanyi, that is now the biggest opposition party, National Unity Platform, their approach seems to be democratic. And with democracy, it's really going to be hard to defeat the current president, because the democracy that is actually happening is not entirely democracy, where you have elections and the president is the one who appoints the chairperson of the of the electoral commission, and you do not have a leveled playing field. While the president is contesting and campaigning, the others are going to be arrested on other allegations. Right now, on every speech during COVID, you realize that the president is getting times to talk and publicize the good things about the government, and then the people in opposition are not allowed, even when we have a democratic kind of playing field. Political parties are not allowed to actually go and hold any concerts or even have anywhere to stage any kind of sensitizations.
I'm sorry to interject, but I want to quickly welcome our second guest. That's Sulaiman Kakaire. He's a lawyer and political journalist. It's a pleasure to have you join us.
Thank you everyone for the invitations, and I'm glad to be here. Sorry about the delays in our connection.
We're happy to have you, Sulaiman. Thanks.
Yeah, and basically they are symptomatic of where we are 59 years later as a country. Thank you so much. I'm glad
we'll be with you shortly.
I can't hear you.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay, just stay with us for a bit. I want to round off with Hakim on the thought he was presenting, and then we'll come back to you to get your perspective. So Hakim, you were basically highlighting from Gbenga's question some of the challenges that the young people face in trying to break in. But I think his question was basically, what can they do now to get into a governance and try to make the country a little better for themselves?
Their contribution to national development, not necessarily political power.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. You see, for you to contribute to the national development, these are some of the things that you should actually possess. One, you should possess power, you should possess resources, and then maybe the knowledge or the intellect. So, and you realize that access to power by the youth is actually not given. Then the resources, if actually the jobs, the people who have grown up, the jobs are actually limited to the few people. So most of these people, and then even those who are within the private sector, there are a lot of taxes that are actually levied on them, that even Uganda is actually one of the most entrepreneurial countries. People start jobs literally every day, every now and again, but these jobs don't last for long. So they have tried really their best, but unless the resources are availed to the young people, if the power is availed, which I actually think it's not going to be, and then the knowledge, except that now we have the internet, some people can actually get access to most of the information that was private, sometimes through leaks from government. You realize that it's really a hard one for the youths now to contribute to the national development, because there is no will to actually have these people inherit what is actually belonging to them.
Okay, thank you, Hakim. Let's bring in Sulaiman here. Hello, good morning, Sulaiman. Thanks for joining us again.
Good morning once again.
Yes, your country, Uganda, celebrates 59 years of independence today. Looking at the journey of nationhood from independence to today, is there anything worth celebrating? And if not, why?
What an interesting question. Well, I don't know how I can say it, because if you just look at the journey 59 years ago, you have to also project it vis-a-vis the history that comes from 1962, a history of starting from 1894, when Uganda space that we currently call Uganda, because I'm one of the people who belong to the viewpoint that the entity called Uganda We've never consented to its existence. We don't believe in it. I am one of those natives who belong to that perspective. If you go back and look at the constituent components of the country called Uganda before independence and before colonial occupation, when you project them and you look at the current context of Uganda and where we are, I can say there isn't anything to celebrate from that perspective. But again, when you look at the faces of liberation, because I mean, liberation is a whole process. It's a gradual process. At some point when we were made to be part of the extension of the British Empire, when it became a governance, leadership of that colonial space was by the white man. We no longer have that.
Okay, I don't know if that's network impacting your contribution, but do we still have you, Sulaiman? Okay, I think the network is acting up.
Okay, Sulaiman.
Oh, can you hear me now?
Yes,
okay,
I can hear you.
we can. But I want to just wrap up your thoughts.
I was just concluding by building a point that is there something worth celebrating? There is, obviously, but we are not yet independent. There is because we no longer have coherent forces sitting in Kampala and taking instructions from Britain. Whereas we continue, African leadership, especially in Uganda, they continue to take some directions, some instructions from the West or the former colonial master. That is done remotely. And I can say we can partly take responsibility of what has gone wrong or what is happening or what is right. There is, so I can say there is something worth celebrating, but in total, if you are looking at the concept of independence, I would say that we are not yet independent as a country. You just need to be in Kampala today and look at what is happening. I'm on the highest street of Kampala, that is Kampala Road. And I've just been, a few minutes before I joined the conversation, I was at a local coffee shop and I was observing what Ugandans are doing. There is no indication of that feeling, that excitement that we are an independent nation. And I think that speaks volumes.
It does speak volume, but does it speak well for the future of the country? That is on the one part. And then on the other part, I'm thinking, does this sense of non-commitment, for a lack of a better word, to trying to drive national change has to do with the fact that the leadership hasn't really changed so much since the country's independence?
Yeah. Well, looking at it from the political realm, I know very well that the institutions that were bequeathed to the independent nation state called Uganda were institutions whose logic was informed by control, coercion, and suppression of the Ugandan person. Now, these are the institutions that were inherited. And you need to go back, I think it's Basil Davidson who writes The Black Man's Burden in that book, where he explains that the institutional systems of governance basically are configured for purposes of extraction, exploitation, and the reality has been seen today. If you look at what we are calling the national resources, are largely shared among the political elites. The political elites are not concerned about the welfare of an ordinary Ugandan. You just need to look at the state of education in Uganda, the state of health in Uganda. Of recent, we've been working on improving the infrastructure, but that infrastructure does not make sense to an ordinary Ugandan.
All right. We will try and stay with Sulaiman as much as we can, and we crave your indulgence with the network. Sometimes these things happen, but let's quickly go back to Hakim for a second, and we'll come back to you, Sulaiman, in a bit. Hopefully the network will be a lot better. You've heard what Sulaiman has been saying about, well, I mean, we mentioned that when we started this conversation. You also said people don't really want to be bothered about some celebration. But is the root cause still the fact that leadership is still a challenge? And once the country gets that right, maybe the Uhuru we're looking for might be one step closer.
Thank you very much. One thing I should actually say that when my colleague and brother Sulaiman talks about leadership, and he actually mentioned one thing, that our leadership, if I just echo what he said, leadership here, it's much more of suppression and then threatening, and you really don't see any signs that the future is actually going to be a brighter one, because the current regime, the current people in power are not at any time willing to show signs of, let's say, even peaceful transition. There's nothing like mentorship. When you look at, recently we had rumors, and there's a letter from one of the first, the in-law from the first family, and they're actually also scared of who is actually going to inherit, who is going to replace the current president, maybe when he's no longer a president. But then that one, we don't even know. Even those who are actually close to him, let me say strictly, those who are close to the president, those who are within the ruling political party, they don't even want to mention that. So if people who are with the president, those who are within the ruling party, cannot speak about even the future, it means that even those in opposition, however much they really want to, it really shows you that it's not even a topic. It's not something that should actually be talked about. Those are things that we can actually speak about when we are talking to News Central, when we are talking, but from within, there is nothing like the future is actually going to change from one person to another. So I think most of the signs are really being left. Signs show that all that is actually left to the Almighty. Maybe everyone doesn't know when.
So I'd like to bring in Sulaiman here, just to follow up on what you mentioned earlier about a sort of colonial hangover. You say it's almost like the current regime is copying the tactics and the methods of old. But Uganda,
colonialism.
Yes, but Uganda is a democracy, and democracy means majority rule. Ugandans went to polls last year. Over 60% of them voted for the current administration. So it means they're happy with the NRM and its policies. So for me to hear you and Hakim paint a different picture is quite surprising, because that's what the NRM and the current government will tell you, that we're a democracy and majority of Ugandans love our policies. That's why they want us to continue.
Well, it depends on which side of the coin you're standing. But what I can tell you is that this has never been a democracy. Well, to be a little bit generous, some people have described it as a hybrid regime. You need to look at a book written by some of the outstanding political scientists in the country, Elections in a Hybrid Regime, where they describe it has attributes of a democracy, but the underlying and the dominant manifestation of the regime itself is militarism. And this is not shocking for those who have appreciated the history of this country. The debate goes back to around 1979, 1980, when Uganda forces bring together elites, human rights activists, and academics and other exiles were debating the post-Amin government. And there were two schools of thought. One group of thought said that we can remove a dictator, then President Idi Amin Dada from power, but we need to take that debate back to Ugandans. And we can use democratic means to dislodge him out of power. The other group believed in the militarism so much that everything started and ended with the military. And that is the group which was led by President Museveni. So it's not shocking. And he writes an interesting essay, Essays of Resistance, around 1981, and which was basically an extension of his thesis he had written at undergrad, Africa's problem, and he was making a justification of use of the military to take over power. Now, when they take over power, the first constituent body, which is supposed to be a representative body, they were the resistance councils. They became the political structure through which the NRA then processed decisions. That resistance council, the leadership of the NRA resistance council, they became even the leaders of the parliament of Uganda, which was the NRM. By that time, that NRC became the parliament of Uganda. Now, we set up, President Museveni set up a body which was supposed to gather views from Ugandans about the future of their country, the Uganda Constitution Commission, chaired by the former Chief Justice of Uganda, Benjamin Odoki. But when you look at the composition of that Constitutional Commission, it was largely of members who are former of the Resistance Council and former military AD of the President Kakaire, who was also a member and eventually became IGP, General Kakaire. So we are seeing the military throughout all the institutions. And you know, this having been the Uganda Constitutional Commission, ideally should have been composed of people who believe in democracy, but not military representatives. Now, repeatedly, the military has played a central role in the consolidation and management of power of President Museveni for the last 35 years. You just need to go back that up to date, we are the only country claiming to be a democracy where the military is represented in the House, in the Parliament of Uganda. We've seen Parliament when it's debating very important issues. The decisions and the direction that Parliament has to take is defined from the high command of the NRM military, which they are calling the Uganda People's Defense Force. The most recent was when we are debating whether the president should be allowed to stand even when he had clocked 75 years, which was the last constitutional safeguard to guarantee a peaceful transition of power. The military invaded Parliament, beat up legislators, and defined the course of how that debate on the constitutional amendment was to take. Just from the recently concluded elections, I was one of the lawyers who represented the Honorable Kyagulanyi as a presidential candidate. We were interviewing witnesses for purposes of tendering in evidence to justify why we believe that the election was not a valid election as provided by the laws or as envisaged by the laws. But most of these witnesses were abducted. Up to now, I'm pursuing justice for more than 100 people who were incarcerated. And some have been released, but 2 weeks ago, I was visiting families at the countryside in Masaka. And some of the families don't know the whereabouts of their people. We are just coming from an election. So if the debate is about whether this is a democracy or not, the jury is out there for anyone to see, for anyone to judge. The most important thing is that we must take note of these things. But the underlying question has been the legacy, the long legacy of militarism. And
all right,
Uganda is
Sulaiman,
not
let's interject so we can look at the celebration. As much as there's a lot of issues to be addressed, let's see some of the reactions on social media at the moment. We'll come back to you both in a bit.
Yes.
All right, we have this one from Prince Edward Frederick Walugembe, and he says, independence means enjoying freedom and empowering others to fight for their freedom. As we celebrate this day, let's be reminded not to take our independence for granted.